Welcome back to First Year in Medical Device Sales. I am your host, Jacob McLaughlin, and coming to you guys today with a little bit of information that can hopefully help you all. First off, I just want to say thank you to every single person that has been reaching out and just been able to let us know about their stories of, the success that they're getting with the podcast, that it's been helpful for you all, that you're actually utilizing what we're saying to do, and that it's actually working in med device sales. It's so much fun. And then also just to everybody who just keeps giving us support. It really means the world. I would not be here without you guys. And we want to be in the position we're at to be able to continue to give back to you guys without all of you and if people didn't listen. So I just want to say, first off, thank you to all of you. But I want to go in today's episode about selling. The reason I wanted to make today's episode is because over the last several weeks, I've had a lot of people message me. And so a lot of people that are like associate sales reps, or they're in their first year of sales and they're just starting to kind of struggle with, hey, I got into the territory. I'm really not sure how to sell, right? And what I mean by that is they'll go to sales training, they'll go work with their companies, they'll have people come in and talk to them about sales, but it's overgeneralized with what they get, right? They get information of like, hey, just go do this, but then it's like, what's happening when you're actually in the OR room and this doctor says this, and there's just so many different scenarios, right? But what I really wanted to talk about is, a lot of times you can have two sales reps, but one's going to get the deal done and the other's not. And why is that? And so I just wanted to share from my experience what I've seen the reps who do get the sales done, what they do compared to the ones that don't. Because a lot of it, especially if you're new, many people are going to just tell you, hey, you need to go network and make relationships, right? And then it's like, oh, be an expert on the products that you sell. But then we don't really know what that means. We don't know the competition. We don't know how to read body language. We don't know how to read doctors. We don't know all the other spots that come into it, whether it's like you're talking to nurses, you're talking to scrub techs, you're talking to actual surgery schedulers, you're talking to, the MAs that work with the doctors, like all the different pieces that come into play, which is actually going to be very dependent on the division you're in. But the reason I'm just saying that is I talk to a lot of people in med device sales. We've talked to people outside of med device sales. And the reality of it is, sales is sales, right? Whether you're selling solar panels, whether you're selling software, whether you're selling med device sales, sales is always going to be sales. And there's a lot of tactics that come into it. And so what I just first wanted to touch on is just learning how to create relationships. So many times I see a lot of new reps come in, and this is the common conversation we have when I'm getting on with new reps, is they go in, they learn the product, and then they just start selling. They'll go have a lunch, they'll go have a meeting, they'll go have a time that they're meeting with the prospect or the doctor. And then the first thing they do is, hey, I want to tell you about everything I got here, right? And so the reason I'm just saying that is so many times when you do that, guards will go up right away. One of the biggest things that I always used to do is do a little bit of research on the person I was going to go be with, and then find out, a lot of times you'll see where they went to college or where they grew up, the hometown. It will usually be listed, especially like for doctors. And I would already have a little bit of information. So for example, if I was going and they knew they were from the Midwest or they went to college in the Midwest, I would always bring up, before we got too into it and too into the conversation, I would bring up like, hey doc, where'd you go to college? Or I'll be like, because I wanted to show I did my research, I would be like, hey doc, so I saw you went to here. And then they'll be like, yeah. And then I'll make a connection of like, oh, I'm from the Midwest or I'm from Iowa. And then I'd always make a joke of like, so you wanted to get away from the cold, right? Because I'm here in Arizona. So then they'd be like, oh yeah. And then we would just make a little bonding right there to then be able to progress after that. Because what I see is so many times is people are just like right in it. I'm going right for the jugular. And that doctor, that surgeon, that prospect, they're like, I don't even know you. I don't have anything here, right? What I see a lot of times is people just going straight for the kill instead of, hey, you need to have a little intro when you're doing like a lunch or a meeting. But I will say it does change when you have somebody come in and they're like, I got 30 seconds, tell me. Or you're at a scrub sink and they're like, I got 30 seconds. This is all I have, right? Then you need to figure out their needs and what they're going through. So the biggest thing is I always talk to people about building the right relationships, but it's one of the things I was talking to a couple of people in our program about is sales is really just caring about what you're selling and really believing in the product. If you can care about what you're selling, if you can show that the product you're giving them is going to benefit them or help them, there's going to be a lot more conviction in your voice. There's going to be a lot more conviction on how you talk, and you don't come off as salesy, because I'll see a lot of people who are like, I'm doing the sales job, but I don't really enjoy it, compared to if you find somebody who is literally selling a product that they believe in, it's going to change how they sell it, right? So let me just make this clear. It's like when I was at Medtronic, and again, I was selling in the OBGYN space. Well, the product that I was selling, I was like, hey, I think about my mom, my sister, my grandma, what's going on. I know this product is going to be way better than if you're going in blind and you're not looking at it, because it's like, are you driving on a freeway blind, or are you driving on the freeway, with the windshield wipers on if it's raining, right? There's always going to be an opportunity of having better care. So I would be able to talk with conviction and be able to show that, and then be able to answer any questions that the doctors had. A lot of times you'll see they'll be like, oh, but I've always done it this way. And then just being able to handle those objections that you're going. But again, the biggest thing I will always tell you guys is just being able to make the relationships start to show that you're a human being before you go right into the sell. And then again, piggybacking off that is selling something that you actually love. Then once you get into the actual selling aspect of, hey, I'm going to go sell my product to this doctor, to this hospital, to this whoever you're going to talk with, it's getting to know their needs. Many times, and like I always say, in my first couple of months as a rep, when I didn't know what I was doing, I would just tell them about my stuff instead of I'd be asking questions like, hey, can you tell me some of the things that you use? Just asking questions. So some of the questions that I would always start if I was doing a meeting is just saying, hey, doc, so what are you currently using? Even though you normally knew, because they're using the competitor, they're going to tell you. And then I'd be like, that's great. So doc, can you tell me how long you've been using it? Because now you're going to find out, did they just switch? Have they used it from residency? All that. And they're going to tell you a certain amount. And then sometimes, like for example, if they say, hey, it's been like 10 years, I'll be like, oh, great. Have you used it since residency, or did you end up changing to it? And then they'll give you an answer. The reason why I would ask that question is if they've used it from residency, it's normally because they just didn't want to change, but that's what they were trained on. And you're going to be able to talk about how there's new advances, right? But they're scared to change. But if they say, no, I used this in residency, but now I changed to this, now you already know that they're open to change, but you can just learn, oh, doc, why did you make the change? And then you can start learning of what was some points that made them make the change to the product that they're looking for or that they're currently using. And then from there, you can start diving deeper into what they like about it, and then what some of the challenges they face. And so when I learned in medical device sales is if you ever go to a doctor and ask them what they struggle with, a lot of doctors are not going to tell you what they struggle with, because again, they're doctors. They're really good at what they do. They've spent a lot of years, a lot of experience in it. Whenever I had an idea of what doctors were struggling with or surgeons were struggling with, I would come and then I would reference another doctor and I'd say, hey, doc, so I work with Dr. B over here, and they've struggled with ABC. Is that something you've ever dealt with? And then they would be like, oh, yeah, I've dealt with that, because then that's going to get me in the segue of being able to talk about, oh, that's perfect. That's what they were dealing with. And that's actually why they end up working with us, because, and then you can go into the benefits of your product, right? Hopefully those are some helpful tips of just how I even started the conversations of starting to sell. But with that said, is you just need to be able to understand what their needs are, what they're struggling with, and how you're going to be a solution. But then I always come into, with you guys being reps, especially my new reps that are, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months in, I always say be an expert. But everyone asks, what does that truly mean? And it's knowing your product inside and out. And that means studying it, getting on it, using it. When you're not in the cases, right, you can usually have demo kit. You should be making sure that you're comfortable on doing everything that you need to, watching videos on it, calling reps, right? Like we would have our fluid management system. I'd be calling reps, learning more about what I didn't know, and then just asking questions, just making sure I was a true expert. So no matter what the case was, I'd be able to help. And when you're in your first year, everything's new. There's so many things that you're going to be learning. So it's just taking notes. So if something did happen, the next time it happened, I want to be scared, or I want to be like, oh, I'm trying to figure it out, or whatever it is. It's okay, now you've seen it once before. Let's go make it happen and have the solution for it. So just being able to make notes on it. Then once you have that, it's also just being able to know the competition and everything about the competition, because a lot of times doctors are going to be hearing a lot of things that aren't always true from competitive reps or just other people in the hospital. So you just need to make sure to know that, like, yeah, that product actually does it, but you can also be like, well, I know they said that, but actually it doesn't because of A, B, C, D, right? And then you can actually explain how that doesn't actually work, because if it did, it wouldn't be able to do what it was supposed to do, right? So just being able to be an expert, but also it's one of those things, if you know everything about your competitor, how they work, how it runs, you're going to be able to go sell against it. Because if you know all the pluses and the minuses of it, that's going to play a big part in how you sell. So that's what I always just tell you guys, is like being an absolute expert is not only knowing your stuff, but it's also knowing the competitors. And then where you can come and really make yourself stand out is if you're doing extra work, extra research to just be an asset when you're in the OR, right? We just got one of our guys hired. And the thing that was really cool is, he talked about on the podcast that you guys can go watch, that he took hundreds of pages of notes. Every person he was on a call with, he was taking pages of notes. He was taking notes on what product they sold, what the benefits were. He knew the market leaders in all these different divisions. And so the reason I'm telling you that is so when he gets in the OR, he's going to see products and he's already going to know what it's for and all this stuff. And then I can sit here and tell you, once I was in the OR and I was doing everything, there were some times I would help the staff set up competitors' products because it was what was best for the patient. And what I mean by that, no, I wasn't being like, oh, use theirs over ours. It was like the competitor we went with, they sold some products that I didn't even sell, right? But their company did. And so we'd be in cases and then that rep might not be there. So then I was like, okay, hey, this is actually how you set it up. I've seen this. And you're able to see them and help them, because otherwise it's the staff just trying to figure it out by themselves, right? If you can be an expert or explain what's going on and help them, you just get brownie points of being an actual expert. And when things like that happen, like if there's something with a case of something going tough and you show that you just actually care about the patient and not about the money, you will watch how people will start coming to you for other things, because it shows that you actually care. So those are some pieces of advice that I really just wanted to touch on, is like making sure that you guys are knowing your product, knowing the competitors, also just being an asset inside the OR room. And that's going to play a big role in you having success. But then really lastly, that I always like to tell people is it's just doing your research, getting around people who are knowing what to do. And then it's actually just showing up, because when you get into 2 reps being inside there and then they're like, oh, I do this and I do that, right? Who's the better rep? Well, one of the big things I really talk to our reps about is, hey, how's your tonality? How's your emotional intelligence? How's your body language? How are you leaning in? Are you scrolled over? Is your face scrunched? Like that actually plays a big piece of it into also learning what the doctor needs. But going from, hey, who's the rep who gets it done to who doesn't get it done? It's the rep who's going to know the process, the rep that knows everything that needs to be done and is able to reverse engineer it. Because if you already know where you need to get your stuff put into at SPD, if you already know the names of them, if you already know how it's good, the process of this is all going to go, right? Like all the different things that are in line with you to go and do the surgery, that's going to be able to have the conversation of you're a true expert, you know what you're doing, compared to, like we've seen this is like somebody's like, oh, can you use my product at this surgery center? And they're like, well, are you on contract? And you're like, nah, I don't know. What's the contract? And then now you're making the doctors do work, compared to these are things of just being proactive. Can you learn about this before you even are asking the doctors? So you're just coming with solutions to them, not any problems or anything that they're going to have to go do work on. So the big thing I always just tell people is just making sure that you can understand the process. And again, when I would be going up against competitors, my biggest thing was just focus on me. I'm not going to focus on the competitor. I'm going to focus on me being the best rep. I'm going to focus on me being a true expert, me knowing my product inside and out, me knowing their product, but also me just being an asset and focusing on the patient. Because if you can focus on that, and then you can learn how to ask good questions, you learn that you actually care about the patient and you're not there just trying to upsell to make money, it's going to go a long way. So I really hope this was helpful. One thing for us going forward is I would love for you guys to reach out to me on LinkedIn with topics that you would like me to go over. I'd love to be making videos specifically that you guys would like me to see. So feel free to reach out to us, Jacob McLaughlin on LinkedIn. We also have New Medical Device Sales on LinkedIn that you guys can reach out to us at. Would absolutely love to hear your input and what you guys are struggling with or what you would like us to make videos about. But I just want to say again from the bottom of my heart, thank you for all the support. I hope this was extremely helpful. And until next time, keep crushing it. Go smash quota. I'll see you on the next one. Peace.